Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. Joined as I am each and every week by this guy, the one and only, the great Johnny Shop, Johnny Guitars, as Jim Rome calls him, Johnny in East Lansing. And he joins me every Saturday to go over and to talk NFL. And we go around the league, but we always start with Raiders. John, I want to start because John Spytek, the general manager of the Raiders, has done something I don't think he gets enough credit for. And he has gone out and signed several key veterans to very team favorable deals that in the past were extremely high producers. Devin White, Eric Stokes, Darnay Holmes. And he's went out and got these guys, Raheem Mostert. And betting on, okay, he thinks they're healthy. And if they are and go back to playing as they have in their past, the Raiders could be exponentially better. And if they're not, on a non-Super Bowl team, he got them through the year without unfavorably team deals. And I guess what I'm getting to is, as a general manager, you can't go out and have 25 first-round picks. Can't afford to pay them. But to get these guys with proven track records, yeah, there's some question marks because of injury, not character, heart, or talent. But I really don't think they're question marks as much as opportunities. I'd love your thoughts.
I think this is a preview in what we expect and hope to see from John Spytek, and I think it actually goes all the way back to his experience at the very beginning. He was in a very well-established, organized college football program at around Michigan, understanding what goes on, how to have success at that level on a consistent basis. Then his first look at the pro game was not in the best situation relative to from the bottom of the organization to the top. We're talking ownership in Detroit. You put all those pieces together in the back of your mind, then you're John Spytek in Tampa, you're seeing how things are really done pretty well, and you're getting an idea of what you'd like to do. Now you've got this opportunity here, and what you're talking about is a general manager that has run the cost-benefit analysis of short-term versus long-term goals for the organization, and identified probably more guys than they signed of who might make sense for us, and what kind of approach are we going to bring to that player to entice them to come work for the Raiders, be a part of this team with this much money, with this much guarantee, with this much opportunity, in a way that is not mortgaging the future for winning right now, like maybe, just maybe the young man in Jacksonville is trying to do or has been asked to do, but also not ever just not quite going for it, not quite going for it, like the Mike Zimmer Vikings, where you're like, holy cow, that team had a lot more talent than they did wins to show for it. So, yes, I hear the people yelling at the screen, and I hear them yelling at their speaker right now. Of course, this all comes down to this works if they win. But we're getting a preview of it because we like to do that on this show quite a bit, as folks know. That's what I see. I see somebody that's measured it, cost benefit, short-term gain, long-term opportunity. And it, like you said, it's not necessarily going to cost them that much. For a franchise that was known for throwing way too much money at guys who maybe were past their prime or like, hey, we need 10 other guys to play defense besides one guy, this may be a little bit refreshing. And it's interesting that you mentioned Mostert. It's interesting that you mentioned some of the medical issues. I have a feeling, given the fine facilities that the Raiders have, they've also got some fine medical people advising them. I don't think Drew Brees, doctor that failed him in Miami, for example, I don't think that guy has looked at these guys. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Spytek, from a bigger perspective, he needs to accumulate as much talent in that building as he can, as we know. And I don't think the Raiders are going to be short or shy about doing that. These are interesting guys that people should put a little star on when they pull out the roster. Keep an eye on them. Let's see what they produce and relative to how much they cost.
John, you don't have success in the athletic world without some ego. In fact, I heard it once said by someone I greatly respect. Everybody who succeeds in any field has some ego. But the Belichick Kraft tit for tat to me makes no sense. You kiss, you make up, you do everything to kind of make it everybody okay. We're all copacetic, everybody's friends again, even though everyone kind of knew there was tension under the surface. But to me, this just makes no sense. I don't get it. Help me here, John.
We'll talk about it. As folks know here, we're going around the NFL from a Raider perspective. This week, Bob Kraft's on a podcast, mentioned something about, well, he took a risk, bringing Belichick in. Belichick has to chirp back. And I think this is what we're talking about. Is this going to go this way for the next couple of decades where everybody's chirping and chirping back? Belichick, with a larger chirp, I had been warned by multiple previous Patriots coaches as well as other members of the NFL organizations and the media that the New England job was going to come with many internal obstacles. I made it clear that we would have to change the way the team was managed to regain the previously attained success. That is not a guy who's writing an exciting version of English, but let's break that down in case you all haven't figured it out already. Who was coaching the Patriots before? Pete Carroll, who won't say a darn thing about this. Bill Parcells, who shouldn't say a darn thing about this. And if he goes back further, you're talking about McPherson. You might be talking about Will McDonough, great NFL reporter for a long, long time. But why? Why? Why does this have to come up? I haven't watched the Patriot Dynasty thing yet. I'm busy with these guitars, with the golf game, with picking my draft kickoff shirt, which is an annual thing now. I got to watch that when I can. I don't understand who wins here. You want to set the record straight? Didn't Belichick just write a book? I don't know. That got really ignored for a lot of reasons. I don't know why Kraft and Belichick are doing this. To be fair, for young people out there, the Patriots were really not good. They really were not very good before Robert Kraft became the owner. The old Remington days, I think that was the owner. That wasn't good. Bill Parcells kind of warned the Patriots with his famous quote that you got to let me pick the groceries. You know, that quote is taken as some kind of a joke and people think it's kind of funny. But look at what Bill Belichick did. Maybe he picked some groceries really well, and then at the end he got to pick the groceries and he had lost his ability to identify which were ripe. But the point of it is nobody wins here. They both should stop talking and get back to patting each other on the back, at least in public.
Let's talk about rarefied air for the National Football League and their franchises. I think this is really unique.
Fascinating. Jeffrey Kaplan laying it out for everybody. Like, holy cow, laying it out. He says all the NFL teams are worth at least $7 billion. And there's a whole long interview with him. But here's the key point, and I want you to take it home and take it around the street and tell your friends. He said, hey, here's what I love. Here's why I think they're worth $7 billion. I know the cost of labor, thanks to the salary cap, and the NFL media right deals, I know what they are too. So from a business perspective, if you are wondering, like I am, why are these things worth so much more money? Why are the Eagles worth billions more than they were when Jeff Lurie bought them? Why is Eli Manning, maybe by mistake, saying I don't have enough money to get a piece of the Giants? Cost of labor is understood, and the media rights, how much you're going to get from media, are understood. Folks, there's not a lot of businesses or industries that are worth $7 billion apiece. Jeffrey Kaplan says this is such a good investment because we know what these things are, and he's putting any NFL team at a value of $7 billion, and he's putting some meat and potatoes behind it. Jeffrey Kaplan is his name. Very long, interesting interview. The headlines are simple: cost of labor, media rights, $7 billion. Folks, that's a lot of cheese and tacos if you go out to the store.
What do you think of the Steelers, the deal for TJ? I love it. I think it was a brilliant deal. I knew they were not going to let him go anywhere, although they had plenty of people interested in him. Smart move. You pay your guys who do it on the field, off the field, the right way. And yet, Raiders looking good because you look at the deal they gave Max. It's looking pretty good for the Raiders.
Those two guys are somewhat similar because if you go back to their football history, you understand they've got some common things relative to work ethic, putting the team first, the motor on them, etc. I think the Steelers handled this pretty well. I think it was wise for them to float and or to listen to what the value would be for TJ Watt so they at least understood what that could be. I think they were wise to let the market play itself out a little bit and then go ahead and make their move. We are not surprised that this move and this deal happened. We are pleased for somebody who's not named quarterback to get what looks like $108 million guaranteed. Guaranteed money, as we all know who are watching and listening to this thing, is what matters in the NFL. I think it's an interesting move. When you take this out pretty far, as I'm sure the Steelers have, they know what it's going to cost them if they have to cut TJ Watt, 4 or 5 years down the road. They know his physical measurables, some of those stats that we don't know about, some of the stopwatches that are clicking. They know, I think, how much room he's got to run at the super high level. And I think it makes sense because this is a franchise that likes cornerstone players. This is their cornerstone guy. I'm not trying to knock a guy that was drafted by the Steelers and who has moved on that we're going to talk about for an off-the-field reason in a minute or two, but the value of TJ Watt, the value of the Watt family, his high school lineage, his college lineage, his time there at Pittsburgh, this is another Hayward type guy. This is another classic Steeler type guy. They put the stick in the ground. They're going with TJ Watt from here. And I think the way they handled it looks pretty smart. So if it works out for them, if we're talking about TJ Watt playing at a really high level after 2028, we're going to have to tip our hat to him because it's going to look like they got one whale of a deal when they got him for the money they paid him this week.
What do you think of Kansas City ready to air it out?
We like to set things up. We like to bring stories to your attention on the show. Then we like to follow up. What a week for the Chiefs. How much do they like that offensive tackle? I think his name is Simmons from Ohio State. We talked about maybe his timeline. We're going to learn more about him in camp. What do they do this week? They go ahead and book it with the guard. They've got the offensive line for the back half of Pat Mahomes' career looking like it's lined up. Andy Reid, famous for having tough training camps, and I love it. And when you're as good as Andy Reid now, you can run a training camp even tougher if you want. They know what's coming on, and he's already told them, get your track shoes ready, get your hamstrings loose. We're going to be moving the ball through the air. Now, who knows what that is, because we know that the best quarterbacks, thanks to the explanation from Tom Brady in the barbershop, the best quarterback is going to identify what the defense is giving him and then try to take it, or identify where they are and try to move some pieces around so he can find something and take it. So it's not that we expect the Chiefs to just throw the ball a million times, but you need to be on guard if you're in this division. I think the Chiefs are going to be better offensively, and the core of that looks like that offensive line. We are going to watch their line. We are going to watch these two guys specifically because there's a good chance, too, that we could be talking about them both still doing really well come 2028. I mean, this is a big deal, big signing this week for the Chiefs. The other little moves they make, those are not as consequential. They need to set Pat Mahomes up with the offensive line for the rest of his prime.
A lot of NFL fans are panicking because there was such a delay signing second round guys. But the problem is a couple of teams at the top were giving guaranteed deals, which you don't see in the second round. This is an interesting conundrum for the NFL and a little bit of an angle now. How far will this go? I remember it was only certain guys got guaranteed deals. Then it went the entire first round. Now it's starting to bleed into the second round. How far does it eventually go? John, I'd love your thoughts.
The first thing that comes to mind when I see this, because it's a hot button issue, is collusion. And for anybody out there that saw the old show The League, they remember Rodney Ruxin himself, the character yelling, collusion, collusion. Now we got to cook him maybe in the second round. Owners don't want guaranteed money for second round guys. Somebody's out there giving guaranteed money second round guys. All of a sudden, 30 guys in the second round aren't signed at some point. Now they're going to sign because guys want to get paid hey, guess what? This is their first contract as a professional. But this is interesting because I think what we're going to see is this trend to stretch a little bit. If you're telling guys we had a first round grade on you, we actually had you in the top 15, it's logical to think they're going to say, that's great. I was picked 34. How about some guaranteed money? I think we're going to see this dip into the second round. The question is how far? Now, longer term picture, and I'm talking longer term picture, you want to expand the game schedule to 18. You want us to play international. We want you to guarantee all contracts. We want you to add roster spaces. These are things that I think can be bargained for. I expect the trend of guaranteed money to second round to extend over the course of a number of years. But this was an interesting thing that's going on right now. As teams roll into camp, we'll see if there's anybody wise enough to hold out. And I say wise enough, meaning not wise. I can't think of how many holdouts in the history of NFL holdouts really made sense. How many really made sense? Did Emmitt Smith's make sense way back when? How many holdouts really worked out?
I think Emmitt's did because he let the team lose money and he ended up getting even more than he wanted. But I would say 80% of the time it works out in favor of the team.
Yeah, and I mean, it's pretty bold if you're holding out as a second rounder. But hey, a little bit of leverage, guaranteed money, and on the other end, owners, they're not allowed to collude. They can't collude about not guaranteeing second round money, but they can let 30 guys sit into the first part of July. Interesting to see. We'll follow it. Again, 2028, I think we're talking guaranteed money for at least the first 3 rounds.
John, another 4th of July player accident. It's nonsensical to me.
We're not going to pile on Najee Harris. We just talked about JPP, which is a legendary story. We just spent time on this show talking about it. Nobody needed a warning. Somehow, unfortunately, Najee Harris gets an eye injury that's first played down like, oh, it's no big deal. But right now he's on the physically not able to perform list. And it sounds like the Chargers maybe don't have a look at him, or it sounds like there may be something to hide, like there may be more of an injury, which is not what anybody wants. But this is awful to hear. We didn't talk about this JPP story thinking somebody else was going to get injured by fireworks. It doesn't happen that often to begin with, let alone at the NFL level. But here we go. And that's kind of the nature of the show, which is good because a lot of times we plant the seed and we come back to it later in the year. Here we are the next week. This is a horrible thing to happen for Harris. I'm not sure Harris knows how close he is to out of the NFL. A little bit disappointing at Pittsburgh. Maybe some of us thought he was going to be really good. The Steelers didn't think he was going to be good enough to keep around. I am surprised that he would be anywhere near a position that could put his career in danger. If you can't see well, and you got to see pretty well to be a running back in the NFL, I don't know what you're going to do. We hope that he's not hurt that bad. And we also hope that we do not come back on this show in 2028 talking about another one of these injuries. I'd rather see if I can get this shirt to fit in 2028 than have another guy injured in a 4th of July fireworks thing. Let's leave that stuff to the professional firework folks. They are not toys.
John, we love to talk about tech in the game, and they're testing some new headphones. Let's talk about those.
Another follow-up story. You remember we talked about the deal the NFL had with Sony to get new headgear? Boom. It's ready. They're ready for it. What have they done to test it? They've taken it to cold places. They've taken it to hot places. A couple features that some folks may be unfamiliar with. Personalized voice isolation. So, I'm on the headset. My name is Sean McVay. I'm out here doing this and doing that. Other guys are in my ear. The microphone's only going to pick up his voice. There are a few companies out there already that are using this technology. It's going to be coming everywhere to help people not get victims of fraud or not have other people impersonating them. But we've got some real high tech by Sony. Unlike some of the past things in the NFL, maybe with the Surface tablets and some of the other stuff, we believe that this has been tested well. That's what Sony has said. They've got a pretty good track record. We talked last year about tech that needed to come to the NFL sideline. I don't think we even know all of it that's coming yet. It's exciting. Everybody wants the best opportunity to see the best game on the field. We don't want calls messed up or signals interfered with, frequencies from TV. Somebody didn't get the call. They got to burn a timeout. This is going to be interesting to see. But are we going to see a Belichick throw the Surface tablet? I don't think so. And that stuck. There's a lot of people that will not forget, and they know, and probably never touch a Surface because Belichick threw it. And they're like, well, why didn't they just get an iPad? Ugh. Sony knows that. This is exciting. We should see some advanced tech this year. Sony headsets, they tell us, have been tested in all the possible elements, and a few NFL coaches have been quoted already as basically saying this is kind of a big deal because we had some problems with the last stuff.
So you mentioned Belichick's book. I've read it. I encourage everybody to. I thought it was, I was stunned at how open and vulnerable he was. I thought it was a great book. All right, last question. I think it was Greg McElroy, but somebody came out saying that they think Nick Saban will return to coaching. I've talked to several people that say he's very much enjoying his break, but he very well might with the right opportunity. I asked each of them, what do you think is the right opportunity? And to a man, and I talked to 4 or 5 people, they all said the same thing. New York Giants. They go, can't see him coming back to college with NIL. They said maybe if he went somewhere with extremely deep pockets, but they said they all said, I could see him going for a night or another bite of the NFL apple just to prove that he can do it. They all said the Giants. And then one person said something to me I thought was fascinating. They go, you see Nick on the Pivot podcast. You're seeing him on these podcasts with former players. They go, as soon as I saw that, I thought he would come back to the NFL. He's trying to rehab that failure image in Miami. Again, everybody I know said how much he's loving retirement. But I also know how much he loves to compete. I could see it, but I don't expect it. I'd love your thoughts on Saban.
We're circling the wagons again. I think we talked about this when he retired, that if he's coming back to the NFL. So I've been in that camp the whole time, and I understand what you're saying, and I think it makes total sense. College is pro football right now, just a disorganized mess of it. There's no reason to go back there unless he wants to rehabilitate something of a relationship in the past that didn't go well. I believe that time is probably coming past at really the university that would have made the most sense. Now, you got to go way back to when Nick Saban was at Michigan State, interviewed with the Giants job, sounded like he had it, and then he was like, all right, we're going to do this, this, and that. And they said, what are you talking about? You're going to have a general manager. Whoa. Bill Polian's got some stories about that too. I think the Cardinals have an issue about that. So total control Saban, NFL, especially the Giants, are like, what are you? No. I do think it would make some sense because he wants to, I don't know, but rehabilitate. Obviously, there were some players that are very clearly on the record with how they did not enjoy Nick Saban coaching them at the Dolphins. There's also a point where that thing kind of broke one way. And his frustration with the Drew Brees situation took it over. And, he's out there maybe having people poke around to see what kind of college jobs he might be able to get while he's coaching the Dolphins. So there's some rehab to do there. I don't think he would do anything but take a terrific position with an outstanding organization and general manager. The NFC East is really kind of about as big a show as it gets. If Saban indicates that he is interested in potentially coming back and coaching at the NFL level, let's see how many teams in that division, and there's really 2 that would be most obvious, might want to have a conversation with him. There is no replacing the competition at the level that Nick Saban has worked at. And there is also, as we have talked about, Hondo and I have talked about this for more than a decade, he will never be considered the best football coach or possibly the best football coach of all time unless and until he wins at the NFL level. Like it or not, Jimmy Johnson has. There's other guys that have won at the NFL level, and the college thing's kind of forgotten. So I'm not sure he thinks he's God's gift to defense anymore. I'm not sure he thinks he's the best football coach of all time. I am positive that he thinks he can win at the NFL level if he's got the right pieces in place, if he's got the right quarterback, and he's got the organization behind him. And look, Nick is Nick. He is a legend. The legend just keeps on growing. I hope he takes a shot at it if the thing comes up and the cards turn up the right way.
John, tell everybody where they can follow you on Twitter, would you?
I am camp ready at JP Spartan. We will get through these dog days. The camp has begun. The shirt goes back in the closet for another year, and we will be getting into it as camp develops. Everybody is ready for the fall.
Make sure you follow me when you go to @Hondo Carpenter on X, as well as @Hondo SR on Threads and IG. And don't forget, si.com/NFL/Raiders, where you get the absolute best training camp, daily updates, videos, everything covering your beloved Silver and Black. See you tomorrow.